Всем привет! Сегодня читаем страницу 11. Мистер Дурсель застыл в своем кресле. A short sentence for a change. Okay. Mr. Dursley sat frozen in his armchair. So here we have sat frozen, and here we have just застыть. And застыть is basically to freeze in a sense of becoming still. So застыть is to stop moving. So, for example, we can say, ну что ты застыл? Ну что ты застыл? Or застыла. For example, if somebody was moving and just like stopped, and maybe the person is in their thoughts, and you can say, ну что ты застыл? Ну что ты застыла? Like, why are you standing still? Застыть we also use in the sense of to set. For instance, in cooking, if you're making jello and you leave it to set in the fridge, so you leave it to застыть. And then as a result, you can use it in the past tense, застыло. Застыло, like желе застыло, meaning it's set, now it's ready to eat. Okay. Падающие звезды, совы средь бела дня, странные люди в мантиях. Okay, so here we have shooting stars all over Britain, owls flying by daylight. So in English version, in the original, we have questions. Oh, actually, I forgot about the people. Mysterious people in cloaks all over the place. Again, a question. So, and here we just have a statement. Падающие. You already remember that this yush, the suffix yush, shows us the participle. So basically the one that are falling. So shooting stars are the stars that are falling. So that's why in Russian we use падающие звезды. Then we have совы средь бела дня. Средь бела дня, also a very good expression that is used a lot. Средь бела дня. And that means in broad daylight. So you can say that something happened. Usually we say it about something bad, like a crime occurred in broad daylight. Средь бела дня это произошло. It happened. Okay. And странные люди в мантиях is, yeah, mysterious people in cloaks all over the place. И еще непонятное перешептывание по поводу этих поттеров. И еще непонятное перешептывание по поводу этих поттеров. And a whisper about the potters. So here in the Russian version, we have непонятное added by the translator. И непонятное is like the one that we don't understand. For example, if there is a word that you just don't know what that means, you can say это непонятное слово. Like I do not understand it. And then перешептывание is a noun from the verb перешептываться. And that means to whisper to each other. So шепот is the whisper, шептать is to whisper, and then перешептываться means to basically whisper to each other. Okay, let's continue. Миссис Дурсель вошла в гостиную с 2 чашками чая. Okay, that should be easy. Mrs. Dursley came into the living room carrying 2 cups of tea. Okay, that's exactly what it is. И мистер Дурсель почувствовал, как тает его решимость ни о чем не говорить жене. Okay, so here we have, it was no good. He'd have to say something to her. So very different. So literally here we have, and Mr. Dursley felt as his decisiveness or his determination to say something, to say nothing, I'm sorry, to his wife, ни о чем не говорит, to say nothing to his wife is melting. So тает is the third person form from the verb таять, to melt. And usually we use it with like weather, like снег тает. The snow is melting. But as you can see, we can also use it figuratively, like his decisive, his, what did I say? His determination. His determination to do something was melting, was disappearing. So that would be, we can also say, for instance, надежда. Надежда тает. Is also kind of like disappearing. Okay, тает его решимость, once again, determination, ни о чем не говорить. So не говорить ни о чем. Here we have our double negation. So not tell his wife about nothing, basically. Okay. Он понял, что хотя бы что-то ему рассказать придется. Okay, and I think that really, yeah, he'd have to say something to her. So this he'd have to in Russian is expressed with придется. So when we use this word, when we really have to do something against our will, yeah, or something that we don't want to do, but we really have to do it. Придется. Мне придется, for instance, let's say I'm cooking and I forgot to buy something, one ingredient, so I can say мне придется поехать в магазин и купить whatever it is that I forgot. Мне придется. And then in the past tense, it will be мне пришлось. So I had to do it. Мне пришлось. And of course it goes with, as you can hear, with мне with the dative. Ему пришлось, моему брату пришлось, and so on. So понял, что хотя бы at least something, что-то ему рассказать придется. И нервно прокашлялся. He cleared his throat nervously. That's exactly what it is. So кашлять is to cough, and прокашляться, it's kind of like that sound. So он прокашлялся нервно, in a nervous way. Петунья, дорогая, ты давно не получала известий от своей сестры? And in English we have, Petunia dear, you haven't heard from your sister lately, have you? So just a little bit different in terms of the structure, but the same in meaning. Ты давно не получала. You haven't gotten. And известие is kind of like when you hear news from a person. Yeah, so новости. So basically it's a synonym for новости, известия. It's kind of like an old word for it. Известие is like новости. And then in Russia we have a newspaper that's called известия. And then from that we also have the word известный, or famous or known, известный, известный, and so on. Okay, so ты давно не получала известий. So давно, for a while, не получала, you didn't get it. So you haven't been getting news from your sister for a while now, right? So that's what we have in Russian. Как он и ожидал, миссис Дурсель изобразила удивление, а потом на ее лице появилась злость. Okay. As he had expected, Mrs. Dursley looked shocked and angry. Okay, a little difference here. So, как он ожидал, just like as he expected, Mrs. Dursley изобразила. So, изобразить is a little bit different. So, I would say when we're pretending, then we use the word изобразить. Literally, it means to depict something. Like when you're drawing, you can say я изобразила кота. Yeah, like I depicted, basically, I drew a cat. I cannot do it, but I mentioned I did it. Okay, or like I like portrayed. But here, we really, when we say about a person that they do it in terms of actions, that really means like somebody pretended to be, in this case, surprised. So изобразила удивление, I would say Mrs. Dursley pretended to be surprised, while here we clearly see she just like looked shocked. So so I would, like, if I were translating, I would just say, как он и ожидал, миссис Дурсель удивилась, а потом на ее лице появилась злость. So here, once again, the translator added that later the anger appeared on her face. Okay, let's continue. Все-таки обычно они делали вид, что у нее нет никакой сестры. After all, they normally pretended she didn't have a sister. Yeah, in terms of the meaning, it's pretty much the same. So, все-таки, yeah, after all, that's a good translation. Обычно они делали вид. So here you go. And so here I can say они изображали, они делали вид. Делали вид is better, but like basically they pretended, and that's what we have in the English version too. They pretended she didn't have a sister. Что у нее нет никакой сестры. So here I would say никакой is just a word that makes the negation just a little bit more emotional. So you might as well just say, что у нее нет сестры. Они делали вид, что у нее нет сестры. They were pretending that she doesn't have a sister. But никакой, it's kind of like adds this emphasis, like she has no sister. She didn't have any sister whatsoever. And for instance, sometimes we can say, you know, in colloquially we can say like it's all the same to me. Yeah, like no difference to me. For instance, we can say мне никакой разницы нет. Никакой разницы нет. And then whatever it is we don't care about, like мне нет никакой разницы, что вы хотите делать. Like I so don't care. Like it's so all the same to me what you're gonna do. So никакой usually is used kind of like as an emphasis, or he came over and let's say it was like, oh, it was 8 марта, for instance, you know, March 8th, and he didn't bring any present. And I can say, он не принес подарка, or I can say, он не принес никакого подарка. And that's going to be just a mush. He didn't bring me any presents. So something like that. Okay? Okay. Так что подобная реакция на вопрос мистера Дурсли была вполне объяснима. Oh, actually, there is nothing in the original note for that. Okay, so so that's why this type of a reaction to the question by Mr. Dorsal was quite logical. Okay, so reaction in terms of like that she was surprised and that she got angry, it was quite logical, was объяснимо, like could be explained, вполне is a synonym for like довольно объяснимо. Okay. Давно, отрезала миссис Дурсель. А почему ты спрашиваешь? No, she said sharply. Why? So here we have, like, ты давно не получала. We haven't heard from her for a while. For a while, she said, basically in Russian. And отрезать, so here, отрезать is a perfective verb that means to cut a piece of something. For example, I can grab a piece of paper and cut part of it. That would be отрезать. And when we're, but here it is used in a different meaning. Отрезать as in snap at somebody while talking. And for instance, we also have an expression сказал or сказала как отрезал, which basically means the person said something and that was the end of the conversation. Kind of like I said it and that is it. Сказал как отрезал. So here I would say it's a good translation for when she like snapped. Like давно. It's basically, that's the end of the conversation for her. А почему ты спрашиваешь? Why? So here we just have why. In Russian we don't just say почему. in this specific context. We really have to say the whole thing, like почему ты спрашиваешь? So just saying почему will not work in this context. In the context where a person is explaining, for instance, hey, I'm sorry, honey, I couldn't buy bread at the store. Извини, пожалуйста, дорогая, я не купил хлеб в магазине. So in this context, we can just say почему, because the context gives us exactly, we're asking about the reason why didn't he buy it? While here, nothing here would explain what why is about, because it's a new context. She's asking, why are you asking about it? Okay, so here we have to say the whole thing. Почему ты спрашиваешь? Okay. В новостях говорили всякие загадочные вещи, пробормотал мистер Дурсль. Funny stuff on the news, Mr. Dursley mumbled. So just a little bit more, just a little bit longer sentence, but basically that's exactly how I would say it too. В новостях говорили всякие загадочные или странные. So in this case, funny definitely means strange, not like funny as in like we're laughing at them. So загадочные or странные would work here. And then he mumbled, and that's a good way of translating the word mumbled into Russian. Пробормотать. It's like something like that. Пробормотал мистер Дурсль. Несмотря на огромную разницу в габаритах, он все же побаивался жену. И именно она была хозяйкой в доме. Okay, this is like totally added by the translator. All right. So, yeah, funny stuff on the news. He mumbled, and then we go into like so this whole thing, несмотря на огромную разницу в габаритах. So what we have here is despite a huge difference in dimensions. So габариты is when we usually use the word габариты, and usually we use it in the past tense to talk about size of something. And usually we say it, for example, габариты машины, габариты of some like big furniture, so the size, the dimensions. And it's different from размер. So размер is like the most common word to say size. Габариты is really, we'll look at it in like several dimensions, basically. Yeah, so while размер can be just like a set thing in like размер одежды, размер ноги. So размер одежды, размер ноги, it really is like one thing that we're measuring. Well, габариты is the size, as I said, as in dimensions, where we're measuring different things and talking about different things. So if I'm asking about габариты машины, I'll probably give different numbers for, width and height and so on. So, but here, разница в габаритах, we actually sometimes apply it to people. So in this case, that's what the translator is doing. So despite a huge difference in size, meaning that Mr. Dursley was much bigger than his wife, он все же побаивался жену. He still was somewhat afraid. So побаиваться, it's kind of like to be a little bit afraid, побаиваться, versus бояться is kind of like full-scale afraid. So побаиваться, just a little bit scared of her. И именно она была хозяйкой в доме. So that word именно we saw before. It's like, and exactly her, and her specifically, who was basically wearing the pants in the house, in the family. So in this case, хозяин в доме, yeah, it's not only the host, but just like in English, you say who's wearing the pants in the family. So хозяин в доме or хозяйка, who is calling the shots. Yeah, so in this case, it's Mrs. Dursley, and again, maybe it's somewhere else, somewhere in this chapter, but clearly not in that specific passage. So as I said, here it's just like he mumbled, and then we have this whole thing. Okay. Совы, падающие звезды. По городу ходят толпы странно одетых людей. So here we have owls, shooting stars, and there were a lot of funny looking people in town today. So pretty much the same. Yeah, so we have Sove, but the shooting stars, like falling stars, and then all over the town, all over the city, there are толпы, crowds, of strangely dressed people are walking around. Yeah, so I'm just going word by word, but yeah, basically there's a lot of strangely dressed people who are walking all over the town, all over the city. И что? Резким тоном перебила его миссис Дурсель. So, snapped Mrs. Dursley. And here we have so again, snapped, a different snap. So before we had like отрезать, and here we have перебить. And перебить человека, когда он говорит, it's just to interrupt. You know, that's one of those things, like when you're talking and somebody's interrupting and starting talking kind of like over you, that's перебить. So basically he was talking, and as he was saying it, she just basically snapped at him and said, so what? Yeah, or in this case in English it's just like so, and then и что is more like so what. Резким тоном is like in a very kind of like brush, angry way, like so what. Перебила его, Mrs. Dursley interrupted him. And then he says, ну, я подумал, может быть, может это как-то связано с, ну, ты понимаешь, с такими, как она. Well, I just thought maybe it was something to do with, you know, her crowd. So here we have her crowd. And actually here we have the word толпа, толпа, and that actually means crowd. But you cannot use the word толпа in kind of like more figurative meaning, like here, like her crowd. It really has nothing to do with the crowd. It's like the people that she hangs out with. And here I would say it's a good translation, с такими, как она, with people like her. Or another way we can say it, с ее компанией. So компания is a good word to know, and it's basically a group of people that you hang out with. So for example, when you talk about, let's say, kids, and you can say they have good friends, you can say у него or у нее хорошая компания, meaning their group of friends is kind of like good young people that people approve of. Or we can say он связался, which literally got connected to, but is basically hanging out with, с плохой компанией. So here we use this phrase to say that this person, this guy, got under a bad influence. Yeah, so he's hanging out with the wrong people. Он связался с плохой компанией. Okay. Миссис Дурсель поджала губы и поднесла чашку к рту. Mrs. Dursley sipped her tea through pursed lips. So here, поджать губы is kind of like to tuck something in, or like in this case, it's like to press something together. So usually we use it about lips. Now, on поджал губы, something like when we're not happy about something and we're like press our lips together, kind of. So that would be поджать. So она поджала губы. And then поднести is to bring something closer to something. So, for example, я сейчас поднесла карандаш к камере. So I lifted something up towards the camera, or like in this case, the pencil. Поднести ближе. Yeah, so that doesn't necessarily have to be up, but closer to something. And usually we have it in our hands because the main verb here is нести, поднести чашку ко рту. А мистер Дурсель задумался, осмелится ли он сказать жене, что слышал сегодня фамилию Поттер. Mr. Dursley wondered whether he dared tell her that he had heard the name Potter. Okay, and that's what we have here. Он задумался. So задуматься is a good verb. Задуматься is to kind of get lost in one's thought, to be deep in the thinking process. So, for example, if you can see that a person is kind of like in la la land thinking about something, we can say, ты о чем задумался? Ты о чем задумался? Yeah, like, hey, what are you so deep in thoughts about? Why are you so deep in thoughts about something? Probably not the best way to translate into Russian, but I hope you into English, but I hope you get it. Like, ты о чем задумался? Hey, what are you thinking about? You seem to be lost in your thoughts. Or, for instance, we can say, извини, извини, я задумался, or задумалась. Извини, я задумалась. For example, in a situation when we have a conversation and then you kind of like get lost in your own thoughts and you lose the train of the train of thought of another person, and you can say, извини, пожалуйста, я задумалась, о чем ты говорила? Yeah, I'm so sorry, I kind of got lost in my thoughts, like, what were you talking about? So here we have задумался, so he kind of like really started thinking about it. And then we have the word осмелиться. Осмелится ли он? So first of all, the verb осмелиться. And осмелиться means kind of like to get courage to do something. To do something. So finally get the courage. So осмелиться, and it's a perfective verb. For example, наконец, finally, он осмелился пригласить ее на свидание. So if he finally found courage to ask her out, он осмелился. So, but in this case, осмелился, will he dare to tell her? And again, here we have ли. And remember, li we use to basically transform direct speech into indirect, and it's the same as your if or whether. So not the condition, but when we're like, I don't know if I'm gonna come over tonight or he's gonna come over tonight. So in this case, if, we are using it to retell a question without the question word. So in his head, he is asking, осмелюсь я или не осмелюсь сказать ей о Поттерах? Like, will I dare or will I not dare? So when, the author is retelling us Mr. Dursley's thoughts, that would be осмелится ли он сказать миссис Дарсли, if or whether he would dare to tell Mrs. Darsley about blah, blah, blah. And just one more little thing, and I noticed it. So he had heard the name Potter, but here we say familiu because clearly Potter is the last name. So that's why we would say it here. Okay, I think that's it. Let me read it from the beginning till the end. Мистер Дурсель застыл в своем кресле. Падающие звезды, совы средь бела дня, странные люди в мантиях и еще непонятное перешептывание по поводу этих Поттеров. Миссис Дурсель вошла в гостиную с 2 чашками чая, и мистер Дурсель почувствовал, как тает его решимость ни о чем не говорить жене. Он понял, что хотя бы что-то ему рассказать придется, и нервно прокашлялся. Петунья, дорогая, ты давно не получала известия от своей сестры?» Как он и ожидал, миссис Дурсель изобразила удивление, а потом на ее лице появилась злость. Все-таки обычно они делали вид, что у нее нет никакой сестры, так что подобная реакция на вопрос мистера Дурсли была вполне объяснима. «Давно», — отрезала миссис Дурсель. «А почему ты спрашиваешь?» «А в новостях говорили всякие загадочные вещи», — пробормотал мистер Дурсель. Несмотря на огромную разницу в габаритах, он все же побаивался жену, и именно она была хозяйкой в доме. Совы, падающие звезды, по городу ходят толпы странно одетых людей. «И что?» — резким тоном перебила его миссис Дурсель. «Ну, я подумал, может, это как-то связано с, ну, ты понимаешь, с такими, как она». Миссис Дурсель поджала губы и поднесла чашку ко рту. А мистер Дурсель задумался, осмелится ли он сказать жене, что слышал сегодня фамилию Поттер. Okay, next time we'll read page 12.